opening frames. I think the name of the movie is Animals. I'm not quite sure. It's released in 2014 anyway. We start by looking at regimental training in the army. It's set at around about the time that the British Army was based in Belfast at the height of the Troubles. We see an extensive selection of grueling training exercises, boxing, running up hills, moving through terrain that's extremely harsh, and of course the regimentation is shown quite clearly, and then an announcement to the platoon or whatever they describe that they're being assigned to Belfast because of deteriorating security. There's a scene between a son and his father. I think it's Jack O'Connell, who is trying to alleviate the worry in his son's eyes at the prospect of his father being deployed in Belfast. It's a contrast really to the aggressive macho style that we were given in the opening frames. This is more tender, and the father tries to reassure by saying, well, I'm not even leaving the country. The child doesn't look at all convinced. Right, got the detail now. It's called 71, released in 2014. This timeline is 1971, and the caption describes a young and disoriented British soldier is accidentally abandoned by his unit following a riot on the deadly streets of Belfast. And the movie is directed by Ian Demarge and stars Jack O'Connell, Sam Reed and Sean Harris. And this movie was nominated for 2 BAFTA awards, and 2015 outstanding debut by a British writer for Ian Demarge, and also the Alexander Korda Award for Best British Film nomination again, and it's also BIF got winner for Ian Demarge, and nominations for Best Actor for O'Connor, Best Screenplay, and also got a nomination at the European Film Awards, yes, and London Film Festival. So quite highly sought after film at this particular time, and I'm now going to have a quick look at some of the reviews, and there's a hell of a lot of them. And sorry for the delay. So we've got, let me pick one. Roger eBay gave it 3 stars. A thriller, the backdrop of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, merges Greengrass's camera work with Sheridan's character-driven dramas, referencing Jim Sheridan and Paul Greengrass, 2 directors that dealt with this conflict. and a very good performance by O'Connell, and toughness and vulnerability to his characters. He plays Gary Hook, a British soldier whose troop have been sent to Belfast to investigate incidents of violence prior to his deployment. Was slightly observing, interacting with his brother and his family, not his son. The silence provokes an eerie calm before the storm. Moments of serenity will be in short supply since once Hook begins his mission. Hook and another soldier are separated from their retreating company during a chaotic raid. When the other soldier is brutally killed, Hook takes off for parts unknown to him, pursued by angry locals. Hook runs deeper and deeper into enemy territory, and it's a fairly extensive review, which I will now copy. I noted once the troops had arrived in Belfast and were shown to their rather their quarters, so to speak, primitive, basic. They then had to stand to attention as the ubiquitous officer from Sandhurst came in to inspect the troops, which sort of sums out how the British Army evolved over the years, with this smug sort of upper middle class rich snob in control and in charge and superior to all these young aggressive working class louts. That's probably doing them a disservice, but you get the picture. One scene seems to encapsulate how in disarray the army are. At a briefing, the soldiers are told that they're going to go near the Falls Royal area into Catholic areas. Are told of a one block of flats that's a no-go area, but later, as they prepare to leave, two figures of authority show a completely opposite interpretation of how they should be deployed. One suggests that they should go with their rifles very, very much to the fore, conspicuous in fact, whereas the CO suggests that a more sort of friendly approach be conducted by the soldiers to try and get the community, the Catholic community, to see that they're there to help. Once they're out in their lorry near the area, becomes evident by witnessing a burnt out sort of shell of a bus that there are no road signs, so the CO's map becomes relatively useless, and then shortly after the group of soldiers start to receive various things shot at them, which turns out to be sort of pellets of urine, which brings a smile to some of them. These are young boys throwing these pellets at the soldiers, suggesting that they are really not that keen on them being in their area where they lived. A word about the cinematography. You can sense from the way the set is prepared that it looks really very realistic. It looks like a place where you would least want to take anybody who you had any concerns about. The talk about urban warfare, this is exactly what it was like. Hatred by the community of the presence of the British Army, and virtually impossible to feel at ease there. We capture the lead character, O'Connell's character, as he sort of stands in the street, and he sort of looks almost in disbelief at the fact that he has become amidst the group as a symbol of hatred by the local people. And of course he's an anonymous figure, but it's almost as like, what the hell am I doing here? I didn't think it was going to be like this. And the community just totally uncooperative. And then close-ups as the local community, men, women, children of all ages, march straight at the line of army lads, hurling abuse and basically telling them in clear terms to get off their property. And the soldiers are sort of trying really to impose some sort of authority, but almost completely anaesthetised by the fact that they have got a gun in their hand. But what are they going to do? Open fire on these people? These people have no weapons. They are just absolutely determined to convey their hatred for these occupation. It's a vivid portrayal. The RUC that are conducting the joint operation have gone inside a house. They're looking for, I don't know, weapons or whatever, and a young woman with a baby is screaming at them as O'Connell joins the RUC man inside the living room. It's an emotionally charged atmosphere, which with a gun around would lead to, well, anything could happen. It's really, I guess, an observation of how urban sort of policing and mob control, or whatever adjectives you want to use, how this is so potentially dangerous for the so-called population that live there, in terms of danger to their life. A few so-called IRA members are rounded up and put into the meat wagon, but the crowd are baying for blood, and the situation is becoming more and more out of control. A gun goes off, that creates panic, of course, and it's a really well put together movie at this stage. Boulders are being thrown by the crowd, and one hits one of the soldiers and knocks him unconscious, and in the melee a young boy rushes in and steals his rifle, which then creates panic. The boy flees, and the soldiers are now concerned about getting that gun back. This is daunting. O'Connell runs in pursuit of the boy and effectively sort of gets separated from his unit. We also see eventually, after the 3 or 4, a handful of IRA so-called members are put in the meat wagon. The rest of the army and RUC flee under a barrage of bricks But what about O'Connell's character? Where is he? O'Connell isn't alone. He's got a colleague with him, and a woman comes out because they are surrounded by a group, a gang, who start kicking the shit out of them, and she comes in to sort of break it up, and then a boy with a pistol or something shoots O'Connell's mate in the head. The assassin is the very young Barry Cogan, who I've just seen in Saltburg, and he of course runs away, O'Connell in quick pursuit. Then O'Connell has to give up that chase because he's being pursued with some Catholic elements with guns who are out to kill him. No witnesses, see. He flees for his life. The chase becomes a little bit confusing because we have the shooter who's fleeing. We have O'Connell was originally chasing the shooter, but then decides that he's got to save his own life, and then the two who are after O'Connell manages to evade them and escapes and hides in a toilet. There's a great little scene when O'Connell is on the streets desperately trying to remain unseen, and it's pitch black at night, and then he bumps into this young boy, and the scene is particularly, I think, resonating in me anyway. This young boy is a Protestant, and he sort of covered his face a bit like a cowboy about to rob a bank, and he immediately sort of becomes fascinated by having met this British soldier, and it's in contrast to what we witnessed. It's a sort of emotionally engaging scene. The conversation between the boy and O'Connell touches on raw issues. First, the boy wants to know whether the soldier is Protestant or Catholic. Of course, O'Connell really doesn't know because religion hasn't been a part of his life, and that staggers the boy. You got to be one or the other. And then the boy starts to describe his feelings towards the Catholics. The IRA have taken out his father, murdered his father, and he believes that they want to murder every Protestant in the city. It's a very sort of poignant moment about how children will perceive life very much as black and white. But of course, for O'Connell, it's an opportunity to trust this boy with his life, and the boy knows all the nooks and crannies to move around and evade any risk of being spotted by the Catholics. And O'Connell quickly realises that his best bet is to go with the boy, because the boy knows the terrain and he doesn't. But he's sort of listening intently and getting a real picture of what this conflict is all about. The boy, of course, takes Gary, O'Connell's character, to the heart of the UDF operations, and of course he's safe. But remember, recalling his duties to maintain law and order and peace, now he's with one faction that whole purpose is to destroy the opposite faction. So it's interesting how the situation that Gary's faces has radically changed. He's in the bar, he's being looked after, he's got a pint of beer, and then we catch a scene where they're constructing bomb-making material to kill the IRA. Interesting. However, because these guys are really not very experienced in putting together homemade bombs, one of them goes off and blows the room to pieces, and so Gary's sort of short-lived safety is now brought into sharp focus. Another tragedy as he crawls amongst the rubble. The boy, of course, his newfound friend, saved his life, is a victim, and he's unconscious with severe burns as Gary lifts him out of the rubble and into the street. It's a tragic irony. The director captures the moment with this eerie sort of hollow sort of silence. The blast has affected Gary and others' ability to hear, and we witness a sort of scene which is almost silent movie stuff, as he's met by a woman in the street with the boy in his arms, and the backdrop is this music score of sort of just noise, passive sort of noise. Sean has sustained injuries following the bomb blast, and he lies down in the street, and then a couple come along and take him to his house, and they find out that he's a soldier. Unfortunately for Sean, the couple are Catholic, so the prospect of taking him to the hospital is far too dangerous. Catholic seen with a British soldier. Loyalty and honour fundamental in this conflict, and if you're seen helping the perceived enemy, then you become the enemy. There's an excruciating scene when this couple take Sean to their house, and he tries to the man tries to ease the pain by stitching up a wound. It's very graphic. The guy that looked after Gary's leg, gave him stitches, then gives a sort of speech about life in the army. He previously was in the army, and we get a political message about the army being an organisation that treats those who are in it like pieces of meat, and how their personal or individual value is not really of significance. They're used treated like pieces of meat. The scenes involving I think it's Bridget and Gary, Jack O'Connell's character, are also quite emotional as they share sort of pleasantries. She is interested in where he's from, and the conversation is, can I say, a little normal amidst the carnage that we witnessed. We return to Sean, who is probably the boy who shot Gary's fellow soldier. He's hoarding guns. His mother is somewhat naive towards his involvement in this conflict, but one of the IRA guys comes to the house, tells Sean to get guns, so they're now back out on the street trying to track down the missing soldier, Gary. And we get a period where Eamon, who's Bridget's father, needs to share what he's looking after. Unfortunately, this would lead to the fact that, come what may, he's a soldier and in a Catholic neighbourhood, and promises are made and broken. But Eamon can't handle him being in his small flat for any longer. Gary gets wind of it, overhears the chit-chat, suspects that his time could shortly be up, so he, although injured, leaves the room, leaves the flat, and is back on the street once again in an area which is a no-go area, and so he becomes a hunted man. It's a little bit like the hounds tracking down the fox. The hit squad, IRA hit squad, arrive. Bridget tries to point out that he was just a soldier. They believe he was a collaborator for the UDF, and so therefore he has to be eliminated with extreme prejudice, to quote the Apocalypse Now.